And to bring in some insight is Dr. Ahmed Hashi, an expert on regional affairs, for more on the ruling and the dispute between Kenya and Somalia. Good afternoon, Dr.
Hi, Olive. It's so nice to see you again. It's a bit hot today. It's a hot ruling, if I can paraphrase that. I think that the Kenya government withdrew its case from the court. And it withdrew, as you correctly said, because it believed that there was some bias. I think that we made some tactical mistakes along the way with the court. Because once you present yourself to the court in the first place, and then you withdraw, the political tactics that you're employing or the legal tactics you're employing are not A+. So maybe there is some discouragement on that part on our side. But I'm in full agreement with the Kenya government's position. Well, actually 100%. I think that court has got some problems. And the reason it has some problems is because we've been urging the Somalis not to take that thing to that court, and that what we need is to sit down and discuss it between these two countries under the auspices of the AU or the regional leaders. Every time there's a dispute on this continent or in the region, we don't need to run to The Hague with the International Criminal Court, run to the maritime border. We as East Africans need to start thinking of ourselves as East Africans and saying that we have disputes and border problems that the colonial system left us. And we need to sit and talk about it and say, is this dispute, and find just settlements for it. And I don't understand what the African Union is doing in this continent, because this is specifically a case that the African Union should have had a special envoy on it and say, look, we need to solve this case between the Somalis and the Kenyans, because it's bringing a lot of trouble. The Kenya government, and I agree with the Kenya government, it will reject, even if it's in our favor. We'll reject.
Okay, wait, first of all, let's back up.
Yeah.
It's clearly a subject on which you're very passionate.
Yes.
But on the issue of the judgment, first of all, did Kenya get an indication of which way it would go, given its pronouncement that Kenyans should remain calm before and after the ruling?
No, that court is not going to give any indication, Olive. The question is, we presented ourselves in that court. Even before the Somalis took that thing to court, we should have never allowed it to go to that court. And when it went to court, we went to the court with them and then we withdrew. I think that was a tactical mistake. Either we should have never gone in the very beginning, or we should not have left in the middle. That's really important as far as tactics is concerned. Okay. Because what is the international community opinion going to be, or even Kenya's opinion going to be of their government just withdrawing because of claim of bias? They should have made that claim of bias very early in the beginning. And if they were going to go to that court, they should have stayed the course.
Why then is Kenya taking the position that or rather my understanding from the press statements that have been made by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's as though we are anticipating to lose this case?
Yes, that's a widespread thing, and the reason is because we have not been there to make our arguments. So if you and I go to a court and you don't come to the court, and I'm there all day telling the judge how right I am, the judge is, more than 90% willing to go with what I'm saying, because the other parties are not debating, or they're not conflating what I'm trying to say.
And my understanding is that we made written submissions. The only thing we did not participate in is the oral submission phase of the hearing, and the judges then felt we can still go ahead.
Which is still the most important. The most important proceeding in a court of law is the oral proceedings, because that's where you try and convince the judges, and they ask you questions, and they say, what about that? And you reply to them. That's how you convince them. So first of all, I think the whole formulation of this thing is wrong. I think that the basic 3 steps are that the Kenya government is correct in saying we need an arbiter from the African Union to sit between us and the Somalis. The second thing is that we need to resolve this dispute within a regional basis. And third, we need a win-win situation for both countries. We do not want to have conflict over these issues at all on this region, because the Kenya government and the Somali government diplomatic spat now has reached a kind of nonsensical level. And I think that has got a lot to do with the president of Somalia, Mohamed Farmajo, who has become very intransigent, who just doesn't want to deal with Kenya for some reason or the other. So I think the best thing is that we need to wait for this court to make its decision. And once it makes a decision, the Kenya government is going to say it's not binding to us, because we're a sovereign state, and we're not going to be told by a court that we should do A, B, C when we feel that we are morally and ethically right about an issue that we believe in. And I think that's the issue that the Kenya government has taken, and I fully support that.
But what informs these allegations that the court is biased?
Well, I think that, first of all, I don't agree with that. You know, I think we're wrong on one thing, because there's a Somali guy who's one of the judges. You know, this is a UN court. So, you know, tomorrow when there's a Kenyan guy who's part of the judges in any of these things, the other group will say, oh, there's a Kenyan judge there where they're biased. We cannot continue on that. You know, that's not a way to deal with these things. So I think that's a very weak argument that the court is biased. What we don't want is to deal with a court that we've been taken to a court where we feel that we've not been justifiably been taken to this court because we have not exhausted the bilateral relations that we need to deal with. And the reason that those have not been exhausted is because President Farmajo is belligerent towards Kenya. So we want to wait for the elections to come and we have a new leadership in Somalia so that the Kenya government can deal with that leadership and say, this is the dispute that we have. Let's bring the AU, get this thing out of the court and let's settle it. That's the way to do it.
And should the court rule in Somalia's favor, as Kenya seems to anticipate, what way forward?
Well, we're not
is there a higher court we can appeal to,
no,
or is the
matter
decided?
We're just going to say that we're not going to allow this court to have jurisdiction over us. We're a sovereign state, and the UN is a multilateral institution. We can reject that thing because we believe that it doesn't fall in line with the policy of the Kenya government and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which I worked in. And I think that the government is correct in its position. The most important thing is for us to start a new diplomatic thrust. And we need to also follow in the Foreign Office, where did we mess up on our tactics? How did the Memorandum of Understanding end up at the court in the UN? Someone dropped the ball on that thing, and we need to hold ourselves accountable as well for some of the issues that we've done.
But can Kenya truly claim to, or profess to be a respecter of the rule of law and then not abide by the court's decision?
Yes, but you know, when it touches upon the sovereignty of our republic, that's a national security issue, and we have to stand up for this country and say, look, this is our position, and we don't agree with it. It's not that we don't respect the rule of law. We just don't believe that the international system has claim over our national sovereignty.
Okay.
And which is something that is not touchable. We're not going to allow that to be.
Okay, and just before I let you go, you say dialogue is the way forward.
Dialogue is the way forward,
right?
Yeah.
But there was some dialogue prior to the matter being taken before the International Court of Justice. What's changed?
I think that the bureaucratic system that we had fumbled on something. I don't think the Somalis actually wanted to take this thing to the International Court. I think it was their last resort because I think they met with some hubris within our own system. And the Kenya government thought that, you know, since we were...
This idea of we've done so much for
you, they're not going to go cross that line. And let me tell you, the Somalis are quite sensitive about issues of the boundaries. You know, here in Northeastern, there was a dispute. It's a Somali region in Kenya. And the Somalis have been claiming it forever. And we've had border wars, conflicts here. Somalia had a war with Ethiopia over the region in Western Somalia. And so the Somalis are extremely sensitive about this boundary issue. Someone in the bureaucratic system fumbled on the tactics of this thing. We need to bring it back from the court into a diplomatic situation. Let them make their judgment, and then let's talk to the Foreign Minister of Somalia, the Prime Minister, as we've been doing, and see how we can deal with this thing in an amicable situation and find a just solution for Kenya and Somalia on this issue.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hashi, for providing